Hello everyone, this is Rick and welcome to Astral Club. Today's video will be called Scary Astral Noises and Visions. We're going to go over a lot of different things. We'll talk about exit sensations when you leave the body. The Dark Shadow Man again, we'll talk a little bit more about him. Disembodied voices, the low energy state, fear, anxiety, excitement, lack of body control, astral winds, the unknown darkness, disconcerting noises during projection, causes of astral noises and how to handle them, and lastly, the Astral Hitchhikers. So we've got a lot to cover here. I just want to remind everyone that if you choose to support this channel, it will be very much appreciated. I will have a description for Patreon. We'll have Patreon link in the description. Okay, let's get started. First is exit sensations. These are the noise, sights, and sounds that you're going to experience during a variety of times when you leave your body. And I think a lot of these are a result that you're passing from the physical through an electromagnetic band into the lower astral. So these are all side effects. You might think of it as, for instance, a radio that somebody is just dialing through all the different stations very quickly. So, but some of the sensations you'll feel, for instance, the most striking one that normally starts off with is the vibratory phase. And that's talked about quite a bit in astral projection because it's very striking. You may feel that your bed is jumping up and down. Many times today, I bypass a lot of these initial stages and I'll go directly to the projection. It's kind of like, you do long division when you're a kid, but when you get older, you do short division, something like that. But every now and again, I'll go through the vibratory phase myself. And I remember a number of years back, I hadn't experienced the vibratory phase in a long time. And it felt like the bed was jumping up and down. And I remember I woke up my wife and I said, I think we're having an earthquake. And we lived in New Jersey at the time, so it was highly unlikely. But so even I was surprised at the sensation. So be aware that you might experience something like that, and it's a good thing. It's the vibratory phase. You may hear radio stations. You may hear miscellaneous noises. You may feel a sensation of floating up, falling down, or out. When I was a kid, I used to roll out of my body right onto the floor, for instance. Don't worry, I didn't feel pain. It was just a way to allow myself to believe that I could get out of my body. And I was happier about the falling down to the floor than I was the floating up. Because the problem with the floating up, especially when I was younger, it was hard to regain control of my body if I just allowed it to float up. I remember sometimes I would just flounder up there when I was a kid, and I'd waste some projections that way. You may see flashes of light. You may find yourself, and this is a very, very interesting phenomena, you may find yourself flying down a long, dark tunnel. People who have had near-death experiences also report this phenomena. The Bible refers to it in a very poetic way. It calls it the valley of the shadow of death. So that's another stimulus you may experience. All of these vibrations, and you may also feel your whole body vibrating as well. All of these stimuli are very common when you're going through the exit stage of leaving your body. So it's important to be aware of this and all the rest of the things we're going to talk about, because if you're aware that this is normal, you won't allow your fear to kick in. And that way result in ruining an astral projection. The next thing is the dark shadow man. And that's been talked about forever. We have talked about him before, so I'm not going to get too much into this. There's a number of theories of the dark shadow man. For the most part, I tend to believe that it is a phenomena that we mock up ourselves through our fears. At any rate, whatever it is, my policy is there's two different ways to handle it. If you're the type of person who wants to confront. Tell it to get lost and go on your way. Or what I prefer to do nowadays is I just ignore anything like that, because I know it's nothing but a scary shadow. It will not affect me in any way, shape, or form. And I have never heard a story from anyone who's reported the dark shadow man telling me that they were physically harmed by this entity. The worst it ever does is scare the bejesus out of you if you let it. So either confront or ignore. It's up to you. Next is disembodied voices. Besides the radio voices, you may hear things like go back or no. You may even hear your name. These are also distractions. They may come from the surrounding planes. They may be from miles away. You may be tuning into a lower astral area where you're picking up these vibrations and these sounds. Keep in mind that our physical ears are very limited, but our astral abilities are not limited by things like air or closeness. So it's very possible you're tuning into a particular band, and it's possible that you're hearing these voices. There's also times when there's maybe some mischievous lower astral spirits out there. Once again, the best way to handle it is to simply realize that it's a useless distraction and ignore it. The next area of astral distractions is the low energy state. Many times when you exit your body, you may feel like you're stuck in molasses in wintertime, that it's a struggle to get as far away from your body as quickly as possible. I wish I had a great trick for you. If you can think about love real quickly, that may help to energize you, but you may also have to struggle. Generally, though, as you get 20 feet or 5 or 6 meters away from your physical body, your energy level will start to pick up a little bit. And also, you'll be moving further away from your body's immediate gravitational field, so it'll be easier to move. But just be aware that, once again, this is a natural thing to happen. Now let's talk about fear, anxiety, and excitement. One of the enemies of a long astral projection is any type of extreme emotion. Too much love, if you believe that, can also end up getting you pulled back. But definitely too much fear, anxiety, or even excitement can get you pulled back. I've had stories from people who wanted to astral project for years, and they finally accomplished it. Then they became so excited that they got pulled back into their body once again. And that's a tragic thing to have happen. You want to make sure you try to control your emotions at all time. There is an automated defense system that your physical body has set up. Yes, it will allow your astral body, especially if you go through videos like this and read books, it will allow your astral body to stray out to explore the universe. But it is also listening, it's feeling, and at the sign of any sort of extreme emotion, the physical body will yank you back through that astral cord. So be aware of that and keep your emotional equilibrium. Next is lack of body control. This is especially a problem for new people, new beginners. It's just like when you were a small child. You had to learn how to walk. Well, it's the same situation here. You have to realize that you no longer have muscles that are controlled by a physical brain. All you have now to control the direction of your locomotion is your pure, unadulterated will. That's what you have to get control of. And it's just a matter of practice. I wish I could give you some sort of secret trick, but just like that toddler, sometimes it just takes a lot of falls before you finally get the hang of how do I go this way? How do I fly that way? Next, there is a very peculiar phenomena that everyone who's astral projected for any length of time is very much aware of, and it's the astral winds. I don't pretend to understand the phenomena. However, be aware that it exists. You may be somewhere, especially flying, and you're headed to your direction when all of a sudden you're caught up in some whirlwind and you're whisked somewhere else. The astral winds are unpredictable and they're extremely hard to fight. So just be aware that it's something that happens, and sometimes you have to go with the flow. Unknown darkness. I want to talk about that now. That one is a major challenge. I remember the first time that I decided to explore outside of our immediate solar system. And as I projected out to that nearest star, all I could think about is I'm going, billions and billions and billions of miles or kilometers away from my home planet, everything I ever knew. And I don't have any idea what I might find. None. And moreover, no one knows. And it can be a little intimidating out there in the middle of this inky darkness. I told the story once in one of my videos where I wanted to see what our galaxy looked like from the outside looking in. And instantly, I found myself, after a moment of unconsciousness, far outside our Milky Way galaxy, looking in at this beautiful sight. And I recall staying fixated on the galaxy because I knew I was out there floating in this immense darkness, many light years away from not only every Earth life form that I've ever known, but from any other intelligent life form. I was out in the void. So I kept my mind on the vision of our galaxy and how beautiful it was as a way to distract myself from realizing just how alone I am right now in this unknown darkness or blackness. It can be scary, but there's also a silent majesty to it. It's a solemn feeling. It reminded me of going into an old church. that has beautiful solemn cathedral. It just had that feeling that I don't know. I can't describe it better than that. But yes, the fear was there, but the beauty was too. And that's what you have to focus on when you decide to leave the beginner stage and go into the universe to explore. Disconcerting noises. These, I couldn't possibly cover everything that can happen or everything that I've heard in a video if that's all I talked about through the whole video. You name it. You'll hear sirens. I've heard people talking, laughing, crying. I've heard children playing and laughing numerous times. You hear your name being called. I've heard chainsaws and jackhammers. Now, all of this stuff is typically in the lower astral. As you ascend to the higher levels, a lot of that distracting noise falls away. But most people who are new and most people, when they first project, are going to be in the lower astral. So that's why I'm talking mostly about that, because that's mostly what you're going to encounter first up. So don't be surprised with whatever bizarre sounds you hear. Now, how do we handle that? Well, there's a couple different sources of astral noise. There's accidental and there's deliberate. Accidental, remember, you're in this new energy sphere and you're no longer limited by your very poor physical senses like vision and hearing. Even perfect human hearing and vision is extremely limited. When you're in the astral, you no longer have these limitations. The only limitations you have are the ones that you place upon yourself. So it's very easy, especially if you're in an undisciplined state, that you can pick up noises from all over the place, anywhere in the astral, especially in the lower astral, because if you're in the lower astral, you're probably with a bunch of other folks who are undisciplined. And so their thoughts are leaking out all over the place. So you'll get that accidental noise all the time. There's also some deliberate noises out there. There are some very mischievous lower astral beings, and they can play games, especially if they sense a newbie. I'm not bothered, but newbies tend to be wandering around wide-eyed with their thoughts and their emotions leaking out all over the place, much like a baby with a diaper that should have been changed a while ago. So it's very easy for these beings to realize that you're someone they can play with. And for the most part, that's all it is. It's just mischievous spirits wanting to have a little fun with the astral projecting human who they could tell is kind of new to the situation. Don't allow it to bother you. It's just something that you might have to deal with. Lastly, I want to talk about astral hitchhikers. I classify these people as annoyances because that's basically what they are. I'll tell you a story about an astral hitchhiker I had many years ago when I was a kid. I would usually project out of my body, leave my bedroom, float down the stairs, and right out our side door, and then go off and find a place to play or just fly. And I was walking past my house when this little man, maybe a foot tall, I don't know, just hopped on my shoulder. And I said, what the heck? And I tried to shake it off, and it didn't come off. And I could tell the creature itself was disturbed because it wasn't used to being perceived. I have the feeling that this little creature, it was some sort of a simplistic nature spirit. And it enjoyed hopping on humans, wandering about in the astral, the lower astral. Or sometimes, there are people who astral project in an unconscious state. And so they're wandering around. And these creatures can hop on top of them and go for a little ride. It doesn't harm anyone, but it can be very disconcerting. I firmly asked this creature to get off my shoulder. And it did. And it was funny. It just kind of tipped its hat and it left. Now, if it hadn't left, I probably would have tried some other tactics. Maybe I would have shifted planes, or I would have shifted in time. I might have gone through a wall, because creatures like that are very simple, and they're not used to the idea of being able to go through walls. So essentially what would have happened is I would have scraped them off. But I wanted to mention that because it's something that can happen. It can be a little disconcerting, as I said, but don't worry about it. It's not going to hurt you. Okay, that's what I wanted to cover today. Those are the astral noises and visions that you might encounter in your astral projections, especially for the newer people. If you liked this video, I'd appreciate you hitting the like button, share it with those of like minds, subscribe if you haven't already. If you have, hit the bell button, that way you'll always get notified with new videos. And be sure to leave your questions and comments. I'm always happy to read them and answer them, and I know everybody else in the club is as well. And don't forget, if you want to support us on Patreon, go in the description and there'll be a link there. And as always, I'm Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.